So 10 years ago this weekend, Trinity Western's men's volleyball team won the national championship on home court at the Langley Event Center. We're here with Ben Josephson just to chat a little bit about what that weekend was like and that whole season was like. Let's just go back to just before the tournament here in Langley started. You finish off the Canada West Final Four. What's that week leading up to, and you find out the draw for the national championship tournament?
Yeah, so we knew we were hosting. In 2010, we had lost the national championship to Calgary, as both us and the Dinos were kind of upset teams in the final. And so when we had lost that game, we felt like that was a bit of an upset to us because we had beaten Calgary, I think, the last 2 or 3 times we had played. Now, obviously, both us and the Dinos were incredibly hot, and we beat an undefeated Laval team, and they beat the number 2 team in Alberta to get there. And then it was a game of 2 brand new teams in the final, and both of us made a bunch of mistakes, and they just made a few less mistakes in that game. And then so then we knew we were hosting, and we felt like we had a lot to prove, and we were guaranteed berth in the national tournament. And we went into that season basically. It was win or bust is kind of the mindset. And I think a couple of the guys in the preview I saw, they were talking about, I guess, our expectations to win it all. I mean, there's only one more step that can be better than what we did in 10. But obviously Calgary was even better the next year as the defending champs. University of Alberta was always great, and they had something to prove after the year before. So I think heading into the season, we knew we were hosting. So what we thought about is, how do we build an entire season to prepare us through every possible pitfall that could befall the team, and be as tough as we possibly can, and then just be hot and healthy at the end. And so, I mean, I think we took our trip to Russia, well, 16 days of a mission trip. I think we flew red-eye to a Queens tournament and played with no sleep, against the home team. I think we played almost 30 matches in exhibition, before we even started Canada West. So we pretty much packed a whole season into our preseason. And then we spent the whole Canada West season almost like rebuilding, learning from the things of the preseason. And then the goal was just try to make sure we're hot and healthy by the time the national tournament came along. So I think, the Canada West Final Four happens, and we end up losing a 5-setter to Calgary again. And so they had beaten us 3 times in a row at that point. They beat us, swept us in league play in our own gym, and then they just beat us in the Can West. So taking that shot was a little bit hard in Final Four, a shot to the confidence when, again, you're trying to be on an upswing, and then you still can't beat the same team that keeps ripping your heart out. But then Alberta gets upset too. So now we have to play U of A in U of A to try to earn a decent seed. And I mean, we had beaten them in the regular season. I think we split, and so we ended up beating them in the bronze. And so we thought that was going to give us a pretty good seed. Unfortunately, when the draw came out on Sunday, it pops up that we're the 4 seed, Alberta's the 5 seed, and we just felt sick to our stomach knowing. So we've spent all of this time prepping for this one tournament, and what we thought was the best team in the country is who we draw in the quarter. Like, come on, are you kidding me? And a little bit of that's on us. Like, if we'd have won that semi against Calgary, we wouldn't have been in that spot. So we earned that a little bit on our own, and then we started looking into it, and I don't think we had ever beaten Alberta twice in a row, and that's what we were going to have to do. And we looked back, and Alberta hadn't lost to the same team twice in a row for like a decade, and so all of a sudden we're going to have to make some history here against, again, a team that's been dominant. I think they had been in about 10 straight finals up until 2010, and so that week was sick. We just felt sick to our stomachs the whole time. But then you get over that and you start prepping, and the excitement was building. And the reality is that quarterfinal we felt like was going to be the national championship. And then if we got through it, we knew the semifinal was going to be the national championship because it was going to be Calgary. And then whoever was left on third day was actually the national champion. So it was almost like a reverse tournament, or almost like 3 straight finals was kind of the mindset for the guys. And I think the message we said was, if we can get out of the Bears on Friday, we'll be playing well enough to win the whole thing. So we were trying to use that kind of framing to free the athletes to, let's win the whole thing on the first night. So let's get the fans out, let's sell out, let's bend every bullet we have, every cliche you can find. And that's what the whole week was about. It was just about Bears, Bears, Bears. And we talked about this buprenorphine, which is the strongest bear tranquilizer. So we talked about those types of things. And man alive, it was a pretty terrifying week when it comes to the stakes and understanding how strong the opponent was, and but that also added so much to the tournament. I mean, the whole country was excited about that game. Of all the quarterfinals, that was the one that's the dream right there. And yeah, and then sets up Friday night, 6:00.
So I remember just a really random tweet now that we're like 10 years on. You said 4-month-old Cooper, your son,
Yeah.
had said you guys were learning about bears, right?
Yeah.
But what then looking into that game itself, talk about that game. What was the key to that game? Kind of what are the stories of that one?
Yeah, I mean, talk about heavyweight slugfest. So, I mean, there's so many storylines from the season that kind of came to a head in that tournament, and one of them was Josh Dornenball. So Josh was our senior, our captain, our fifth-year guy from Edmonton, and he was recruited by U of A as well. So it was kind of that. So every time you play U of A as an Edmonton kid, that's a big deal. And so it was a big deal to have to play those guys in what could have been his last meaningful match. And so what happened in Russia was Mark Howitson had one of the most horrific injuries you could ever happen. He dislocated his ankle completely. And there's probably a whole episode we could talk about what happened there. And they stretcher him off in this World War II stretcher, throw him in the back of a Jeep. John Weeb jumps in. No. He's like, I'm coming. And then Joel Jansen runs the Jeep down to jump in because we needed some staff, and they just haul him off to a hospital. And it was just a crazy story. So then they jam his leg back in, and he wanders around Moscow on crutches. And it gets back to Canada. We realize there's no fracture, like 1 in a million type thing, the dislocational fracture. So, I mean, one of our best players is now out. We have to rethink our roster. We were going to have Rudy Verhoof on the right, Dan and Lucas in the middle, and then we were supposed to have Mark and Mark in. Yeah, it was supposed to be Mark in a version of Mackay or Del Bianco on the left. Well, Mark's out, so now we shift Rudy over to the left, and Dorney goes to the right, and that was huge. So in that game, I think we were playing Brandon maybe about 3 or 4 weeks before the tournament, and we got blitzed on the second night. Dorney couldn't score, and they knew it, and they just took advantage of us, and they had a great team, as we will see in the final. And I just remember us sitting in our staff meeting going, I don't know that we can keep going with Dorney on the right. I mean, because Dorney in the middle was unstoppable, unbelievable player. And on the right, he just wasn't really clicking. And we had a decision to make. Do you let Dorney stay on the right, or do you put him back in the middle and let him just have a really great finish and dominate the game? And we decided to stay with it. It's like, well, let's believe in him. He's working hard. He's doing all the right things. And the question we had that we kept coming to is, at 23-23, if he gets a high ball, could he terminate? Because that's what we're going to need from him. And honestly, we couldn't answer that question, in February. And that's one of the most memorable parts of that quarterfinal is, I can't remember if it was the first or the third set, but I think it was 24-23 for us. And a high ball goes out to Dornenball, and he goes high hands, long court, off the wall. And we just looked at each other's staff, that was exactly the kill we didn't know if he had in him. And that once, so then because and then he just played great the whole weekend. I mean, one of his best three matches of his career on the right side were in that tournament. And that's what we needed from him. And he prepared the whole season for that three. And I think that we beat U of A because Dornenball was able to balance the court. We had sent so many balls to Rudy in the left. Dorney playing that great against U of A in what was last meaningful game. I mean, Edmonton kid, you can't write a better story. And he was the player of the game for sure. But that was, U of A, I think probably both teams almost put up 20 blocks. It was just this super medium passing, incredible attackers, massive blockers. It was just really exciting volleyball. But I always found when you have two really well-balanced teams, whoever wins the first set is probably going to win the match. Because it's just really hard to beat a good team 2 sets in a row. I mean, 3 sets is almost impossible. So getting that first one was gigantic. And, you don't want to tell the team that, but as coaches, we're like, we got to get this first one. It's playing uphill against U of A. That you just nobody wants to be in that spot. So we get the first, they get the second, we get the third, they get the fourth, and really then it comes down to the 5th set. And it's the way it should be. Like the margin between those teams was razor thin. And really in the 5th set, what we always talk about is whoever catches the run first wins. So then we lined up our best 3 servers as our first 3 servers, and we just prayed that one of those 3 guys caught fire. and it was Lucas in that one, and he caught a run. I think we went up 5-0 on his run, and after that, then it's just side out ball. Then it's a sprint. Just don't flinch, and they never caught a run more than 2 points, and we were able to squeak it out 11 or something like that. And I think we probably would have traded sets all night, to be honest. We could have played best of 21, and it's probably in the 21st set going after it. And I just think that's how competitive those two teams were. That's how well coached and how well balanced those teams are. The other funny thing about that matchup is we played 2 games in the regular season, the bronze medal, and then the quarterfinals. So we played 4 matches of the exact same matchup. So usually, coaches would flip it, but again, because it was so close and so competitive, neither coach we both wanted the same thing. So they wanted Rudy matched up on Leitsky, and we wanted Nick matched up on their setter, Tanner. And neither coach was willing to flinch out of it. So we played, 20-some sets in the same matchup. So talk about guys knowing each other. Every rotation, they're in the same rotation against us, and I've never seen that before, and it was just an epic. Another one of those great stories in the Bears Spartans rivalry book.
And you mentioned Nick there. Now Nick Del Bianco, we just inducted him into the Canada West Hall of Fame. Unbelievable career. That was his first year. What was his performance like in that tournament?
Yeah, I mean, we knew we had something special in Nick. I got to coach Nick when he was U16, and so he just saw what kind of special man he was, and I wanted him so bad to join our Spartans team from that moment. What I didn't know is how tough he was at the time. We knew he was talented, we knew he was cool and had flair and all the cool stuff that you saw from Nick. I just didn't quite know it. And now it's funny to say now because his story's been written as a Spartan, and he goes down as one of the legends of the program and one of the Mount Rushmore players, I would say, and tough as nails, like one of the toughest players we've ever seen. But at the time, we didn't know that. And he showed it a few times throughout the year, but then again, with Mark's injury, we were asking a lot of Nick to step in as a rookie and carry big load for a team that was trying to win a national championship. And in that game against Alberta was when I think he showed his mettle. We played him the whole 5th set. Howitson didn't have anything left after about this 3rd set. He was toast. And he gave us what he could, and just didn't have the capacity to keep going. And Nick just carried the load. I mean, I think Nick, when we beat Alberta in league play, I think he led the team in kills. He must have had like 18 kills or something like that. And same thing in that quarter. We just streaked Nick. If you watch the 5th set, I watched that this morning, try to remember some of those moments. I think he had 3 kills after 10 in high ball situations to get us out of trouble. So the fact that Benny Ball is setting him those balls in that spot, and the fact that he terminates all 3 of them, it's just, again, that's when the legend of Delbs started to be born, of just how special this kid was. And I mean, without him to be able to play that well, again, to win a championship, and we've been fortunate to win a few more since then, but they all have a common theme in that you have to be a little bit lucky, and you need a couple players to play bigger than they've ever played. And we were a little bit lucky, and there was a couple calls that went our way in that tournament, especially in that 5th set, and Nick Del Bianco played bigger than he'd ever played. Dornball played bigger than he'd ever played. So in that match, those 2 guys kind of puffed their chest and became just a little bit bigger than they had been, and that was probably enough to find a squeak out of 5th set against the big bad Bears.
So you beat the Bears,
yeah.
And then next up, 24 hours later, you got the Calgary Dinos. What do you remember?
Yeah, so I mean, talk about the juggernaut of all tournaments. So we go from our biggest performance rival in the Bears to now we have to line up against the team who's had our number for the last 12 months, and made sure we knew about it. I mean, those guys, they had an edge to them, and they didn't like us, and we didn't like them. And I mean, you always say there's mutual respect, and yeah, there was, but that was heated between those teams, and in a really cool way. Like it wasn't super chirpy or anything, but there was like the idea of them losing to us. I mean, you talk to those guys now, like they just don't even want to talk about it, and we don't want to talk about 2010. And it's just, again, that's like you have your traditional rivals, and then you also have these teams that pop up. And in that era, there was just such great matchups. And then a lot of those guys were great friends because they all played national team together. But man, when we put on red and blue, it was intense. We played them in our holiday tournament, and we beat them 3-0. We played really well, and we throttled them. The problem was we started telling them about it, and I remember on the bench going, "This game means nothing. they don't actually care. I mean, and it meant a lot to our guys because that was the first time we'd played them since the tournament, since the loss. And our guys were fired up. And we win the last point. And Dan Jansen Van Dorn, man, I love him, but this is one of the stupidest things I've ever seen us do is last point, he salutes them after we win. And we see that on video the next day. I didn't see it live. I saw that. I'm like, oh no. Because we play them, I think, in 2 weeks in the opener. And Dan just gave them everything they needed. And they all talk about it. Like, oh yeah, we watched that a lot. So it's like, don't give them bullet board artillery. Not when they're so good. And sure enough, those guys walked into our building and they crushed us 6-0. 3-0, 3-0. We were never in it. And they took our soul. It was hard. I don't think we've lost 6-0 in our gym. I think I read maybe like for about 9 or 10 years before that. Back when I was actually a player, which we lost 6-0 a lot in those days. But man, so that was hard. So then we get these guys, right? They have our number. They own us. The other complication is Dan JVD's knees are toast. He's done. So we got Mark Howitson, who's playing on fumes on a bum ankle. And he's only got maybe 50 good jumps in him a night. Dan JVD's knees are gone. He's just grinding through it, eating a bottle of Advil a week, it seems like. And he's like, Coach, I mean, I don't know if I can play much on Sunday if I have to do another 5 sets. So, like, you know, you're right. He's like, I'll do it, whatever it takes. But we're trying to figure out, like, how do we think about this whole tournament, but also we got to get through the semi. So we started thinking, well, these guys have handled us the last 3. So maybe let's change something up. Maybe let's give them something new because they clearly have our number. So we decided to rest Dan, and we put Dorney back in the middle. They weren't a particularly tough serving team. So we thought that we could probably run a lot of middle on them. And their middles were good spikers, not as great at blockers. Well, Graham was, but so we decided to play Mackay on the right side. And Mackay's an Alberta boy, and he knew most of those guys growing up and played against a lot of those guys in club. And Mackay is one of those really fired up competitors, and we knew we were going to get tons of energy from him. And Mackay has one of the most dangerous serves we've ever seen at Trinity. And so the idea to get that full time was something we were excited about. So we rested Dan, we put Dorney in the middle, we put Mackay on the right, and we crossed our fingers and waited to see what would happen. And man, this is again the story of a championship. Mackay played out of his mind in that first set and just dropping bombs, and Dorney was doing his thing, and they didn't have an answer. So we actually got away with the first set pretty easily. And Mackay's serve was popping, and we knew that they would probably figure us out. They've got a great coaching staff, great veteran players, and so as that thing builds, you know, they started getting on to Mackay a little bit. Their servers started picking us apart and getting us off the net a bit, and so we eventually, you know, we lost the second set. But what we had done is we had stole 2 sets for Dan. So now we had Dan, and we looked at Dan. He's like, I'm ready. We told him in the second set, he's like, if we lose this, we might need you. And he started warming up, and in between sets, we're starting to switch. I just felt my coat get tugged. I looked over. He's like, I'm ready. And he had that look. I'm like, oh, yeah, this kid's good to go. And so then we went back to our lineup. So now it's, you know, it's best of 3 now. And I don't know that we win that set if it wasn't at home, to be honest. I mean, those guys had all the momentum. We had all the mental stuff against us, but we walked out, and the faithful just went nuts in the beginning of that third set. And, you know, we had a bunch of Calgary guys on our team. You know, Jared Offrens and Rudy Verhoef are both Calgary boys. And so they're looking across the net with high school teammates, like roommates, great friends. And, yeah, so then it was time to go. And those Calgary boys, again, just like the Edmonton boys, it's a big deal playing your hometown. And, yeah, Rudy just went nuts. And so now Dan back in, a fired up Dan, and Rudy just went off. And we won the third, but then they won the fourth. Like any great champion, they're never going away. And then here we go, 5th set again. And like same thing happened the night before. You line up your best 3 servers to try to get the run before 8. It was Lucas again. Caught a run. We switched at 8-4, I think. And then it's a sprint to the finish. And the other part of that game too is Mackay Shulk is a funny person in that Mackay could probably hit a jump serve just as well walking into a gym in jeans as he could after a full warm-up. And I think that just made him the most perfect serving sub. The problem is Mackay has 1 speed, and every serve Mackay hit was, you know, full blast. And so he's not going to get cheated when his serving sub happened. And most of the season, he had a hard time serving that one in very consistently. But it was such a weapon. But at the tournament, I mean, he was good for 2-3 points every time we put him in, and it was his moment, right? It's his 5th year, and the Calgary game was the best one. Is he goes in the first set, he hits his first serve, and the crowd just goes, "Ooh!" And Mick looks around, and he's like, "This is my time. I'm gonna show off." And he just was dropping Mick bombs the whole time, and we call him Macaque Schlack because one of the schools we were at couldn't pronounce his name, so they kept calling him Macaque Schlack, and so that's the running joke is Mick bombs. And yeah, so it was neat. So Dorney on Friday in the quarter, one of our 5th-year guys just goes nuts and wins that game. And Mackay gives us those first 2 sets to relieve Dan, and his serving just changed the game. And so now we got 2 nights in a row, unsung heroes from our 5th-year seniors. And then finally got that monkey out of our back and redeemed ourselves against the Dinos. And again, I think I heard Durant's interview, and Coach Rod was saying, we didn't lose, we got beat. And I think that's the dream of any team is they played great, we played great. And honestly, if it wasn't for the Spartan faithful home court, I don't know that we won that. I mean, how many points is that home advantage worth? I don't know, probably 2-3 a set. Well, look at those scores. I mean, we won by 2 or 3. And man, you don't win that. You don't play 2 5-setters against the Bears and the Dinos and win, back to back without some kind of extra juice. And that's where the faithful were nuts. That place was the loudest. You could see it on the video and just hear you spend 2 hours after the game letting your ears stop ringing. But no, it was something special. And I think I heard they sold out the gold medal before everyone leaving bought tickets for the next night, and that place sold out an hour after the semi. And so it was set up, but the Dinos were done. The other funny part is, I think the relief, there was excitement when we beat the Bears. There was relief when we beat the Dinos. Again, they had beat us 3 in a row. There was so much emotion on that game. There was so much kind of animosity between the two, in a good way, but animosity between the 2 teams. And what I didn't know is there was a silver medal hanging on our net every practice that entire season. I didn't know who was doing it for a while. I'd come into practice, and there's this silver medal, and you're just like, oh, you just get so mad seeing that thing. And then anytime the guys had a little bit of lull in practice, they'd look over, and there's that silver medal reminding them of the failure of the match. But also, I think it just increased the intensity towards the Dinos. And so, again, there was excitement and elation after beating the Bears. There was relief and a sigh after the Dinos. And that's the crazy part of a national tournament. Now you got to play a 3rd night in a row, and you never do that in league play. Beating a great team twice in a row, that's what Canada West is all about. Beating a great team 3 in a row, none of us know how to do that. And we had never done that as a team and as a coach. We had lost that final. And so it's setting up.
Yeah, so then Brandon's obviously in the final. You touched on the Spartan faithful. That first set, so memorable. 25-11, the crowd was clearly a huge part of that first set win, and just kind of rolling this wave of emotion almost. How did you kind of see that first set going?
Yeah, and I think it was almost a reverse tournament in that we perceived Alberta as the best volleyball team in the country. We perceived the Dinos as our biggest mental issue. And then Brandon, for right or for wrong, was almost an afterthought for us at that point, because there was just so much more emotion attached to the Bears and the Dinos with the history. The problem for us as coaches is they have Paul Sanderson and Kevin Miller, who maybe are the 2 streakiest spikers in the. Sanderson's numbers speak for themselves. He's the greatest scorer in Canada West history, and Kevin Miller was. The way he was playing at the end of his career was, his equal. So we knew what kind of scary players they were. The problem we were worried about is our guys. After they got through the Bears and Dinos, so we had to really be careful. We wanted to capitalize on the momentum and the confidence that should give us, but we didn't want to overlook our opponent, but then you also don't want to diminish their emotion. So it was just a really complicated day. So I think our strategy is we really tried to get back to the roots that we built in Russia. So in Russia, we partnered with Athletes in Action, and we had a mentor named Dave Johns with us, and he ran the guys through a lot of different tools to apply their spirituality to their game and their faith to the volleyball. And so there was all these, and we had a really strong kind of spirituality to the group, and there's some really, really charged up spiritual guys on the team. And so then that's where the Chariots of Fire quote kind of came from. And so we used the YouTube clip, and basically, Eric Liddell was talking about how God created him for a purpose, but he also created him fast. And running wasn't his purpose, but he was given the gift of speed. And blending his gift of speed with his purpose, of expanding the kingdom is kind of what gave him joy. And so we talked a lot about that with the guys. And, I think I learned that from Ron Pike. The first championship we won is a head coach's job in the national tournament is try to find a way to reduce the pressure and reduce the size of the moment so the players can play well. And I failed at that big time in 2010. In the national tournament, I made the moment bigger than it was, and I didn't set our team up to play well. And I think that was our whole goal, is so we have this huge wave of emotion. The fans are nuts. We have everything going for us. It was going to be like gas on a fire if we didn't find a way to kind of center ourselves and get back to our foundation, our roots, our identity. And this idea of, we were created for a purpose, but we were also given volleyball gifts. Tall, jump high, spiked hard. And that became the focus, is how do we, this is our chapel, this is our joy of playing the game with these people. It's the last game this team will ever play together. And then I think we've used that quote a lot since then, is you will never play a game again with this group of people. So the best thing we can do is just honor each other by being great teammates and playing our best ball and showing all of our friends and family and the Spartan faithful in the crowd just what we're about. And I think the guys really grasped that. And I think I learned a lot as a coach from the year before about it. Don't make the moment bigger, make it about what we're really about. And what we were about is being good teammates, playing good ball, and having great energy. And I think that's why the guys played so great. So they handled the moment so well. And then Brandon was new to the moment, just like we were new to the moment last year. And they looked at that first set. They were out of sorts, and we were awesome. So you get the wave of emotion from the Spartan faithful. Place is packed. People are wearing all kinds of different clothing, and our guys are just out of their minds, fired up. Like, they can't be stopped. And their coach, he subbed their entire starters up by the end of the first set. And it's a clever move, though, just getting them to reset. And Coach Russ Paddock, he's seen it all. And but that first set was something else. That was it was like a locomotive. Like, there was no stopping those guys in. And then
second, third sets. Like, how did you guys kind of keep that emotion without getting over the top or looking forward to winning? There's still work to be done.
So one of the great parts of Spartan culture and Spartan folklore is this one. So at the end of every set, especially in a match, the whole crowd stands up, puts up one finger, and that there's a lot of meaning to that. And this is the weekend it was born. And we use this phrase called point match. And so basically the way that works is after a match, you evaluate what went right, what went wrong. Then you formulate a plan based on that information, and then you go and execute the next match. And then same thing happens. You evaluate right and wrong, formulate a new plan, go and execute. And that's the flow between every match. So what we were asking the guys is, can you turn every point into a match? Evaluate, right or wrong, formulate, execute, evaluate, formulate, execute. And we just started practicing this idea, and it was just one point at a time. And this was the signal that the guys did to each other for one at a time. And then the cool part is over time, that became the reminder of what our purpose is. And then this whole idea of created for a purpose, but also created as a great volleyball player. And this one, like, what are we actually about? We're not just about winning, we're about, each other and honoring God and all of these great things. And this symbol became a bit of all that. It became point match. It also became like pointing to the heavens, like, this is what we're about. And so now when the crowd puts up one, it's a good reminder. I mean, I tell our team all the time, like, you guys understand that's 1 point. It's point match, but it's also like, look, they're all pointing at our priority and what our calling is. And that balance, it was huge for us. And so you watch that game, like, every time, and I can see Rudy clearly in my mind. It's like big kill, back to stone face, just one finger, and the guys just won. And I think that was how the group was able to stay mostly grounded.
So third set, I mean, you guys are on the verge of winning a national championship on home court. What do you remember about the third set?
I just remember being just terrified that Paul Sanderson was on the other side of the net. I'd seen, for those Canada West fans out there, there was just a joy to watch him play. And he was an absolute terrifying player to play against. At any moment, he would just win a game. And so as long as he was healthy and on the other side, we knew that it was never over. The problem is athletes don't think that way, but coaches have to. And I just remember thinking in that third set is, how do I keep the guys focused, yet prepare for what's eventually coming from Sanderson and Miller. There's no way that team is in the national final and going down without an epic fight. And we just won the first set so easily. The second set, we kind of almost cruised with the same momentum, but I don't think we were playing great. And it almost felt like the fumes of the first two nights were starting to take effect. We're starting to run out of juice, and you could just see the look over there, like they're coming after us. And I just remember being very, very nervous between the two sets. But I also remember remembering I tried to affect the game in 2010. As a coach, I thought that I could help the team. And what I just reminded myself, and I remember thinking, going, it's the players who will win or lose this thing. As coaches, we just have to try to find a way to create an environment where they can access their training, access their freedom, and just play their game. And so that became the focus. Like, what can I best do? Is I can prepare for one, just like I'm asking them, what's the next point? What's the next thing to do? What's the next adjustment? Who's the next server? And that was my mindset. So then I looked around in that timeout, and I remembered we have Rudy Verhoof on our team. Like, we're going to be okay too. They may have Paul Sanderson, but we got Rudy. And the coolest story about Rudy is so when Mark went down, Rudy was playing right side at the time. So he's a national team middle player, the captain of the junior national team. He's an incredibly efficient middle, and now let's ask him to play right side. Part of that was to get him to affect the game a little bit more. What Rudy wasn't great at is passing. So when Mark goes down, we met with Rudy and we're like, hey, Rudy, we're really thinking about, putting you on the left, putting Dorney to the right, because Dan JVD had become quite a player. Funny story with Dan goes is, in the summer, 2010, Dan was not starting. We called him Fat Dan because Dan was not in good shape. Dan was lazy. Dan was not the Dan JVD that people know today. And what happened was cool. And we hope this for every athlete, is that they figure out like who they want to be and their intent and the kind of their motivation. And that summer, Dan dropped 20 pounds, put 6 inches of spike touch on, and came back a beast. And at that point, so now you're looking at he and Lucas, Rudy and Dorney as four, of the elite middles in the country, going, how do we put these dudes on the floor? And so Rudy was supposed to go to the right. We were never planning on Dan to be that good until he showed up. And again, that's when Dan really had his coming out moment. Now he's an Olympian. Like, what a great story for another day. But when Mark went down, the goal is, how do we put our best 7 players on the floor? Well, Dan and Lucas in the middle. Dorney goes to the right, like we talked about, and then Rudy to the left. And for those who don't know Rudy gets to wear 11 as he graduates, which is no greater honor in our program because that's the kind of man he is. And so Rudy comes into our office, and I think it was me and Adam sitting there, and we want to put you in the left. And what do you think? He's like, what do I have to do? He's like, well, I need you to come in every single day for an hour to work on your passing. Done. And for 6-7 months, that guy came in every single day for an hour and worked on passing. He never became a good passer, but he found a way to be medium, and that's all we needed. Because his medium passing with his unbelievable scoring on the left, in that third set, it was the Rudy show. So when they had Paul Sanderson, we had Rudy Verhoof, and it was just, they set left, we set left. They set left, we set left, and it was just this great heavyweight slugfest of 2 of the best spikers in the league at the time. And it came right down to the wire, and you just don't want to be the team to flinch. And what we always talk about is you don't got to be mentally tough for the whole game. You just got to be mentally tough 1 point longer than they are. So once they crack, then you've done it. You just got to hold on until the other team breaks. And man, Brandon wasn't breaking, and it was 22s, 23s, and finally we had a ball handling error, and then we had that advantage. So we had match point, and that, the videos are awesome. Like, everyone's standing up, and everyone's got their phones out, and this moment, and we served. They set Sanderson, of course, and I think we had 3 guys on him because he's getting the ball, and we got him that time. One of the very few times we stopped him the whole night, and the place goes nuts. The floor gets rushed and mobbed, and people are everywhere, and it was nuts. It was one of those moments that it was my first championship as the head coach, and it was the first time when you win one championship, I think, as a program, it's cool. But winning a second one means that your program's legit. And for me, as taking over for Ron, that was a monkey off my back. And in that group, I recruited every one of those guys myself, and it was just this special, special moment. Crowds on the floor, everyone's screaming and crying and jumping around.
Except it took you a minute to move.
Yeah.
You stood there for an extra second.
Yeah, I saw that video actually this week when I was thinking about this, and it was crazy. I think I told you in an interview, but I was just so focused on not screwing up this year after what I felt like I did in 2010 is I tried to help the team and I ended up making it worse. Sometimes they say coaches make the team 5% better or 30% worse. I probably made my team 50% worse in 2010 in that final. And I was just trying to praying I was going to be the reason that we lost again. And so that was just trying to stay here. I was trying to stay in my headspace. And then I think when we won, it was just the sense of I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss it. I remember before my wedding, somebody sent me a piece of advice, and they said, make sure you take it all in. Don't miss, capturing the memories of everything in the whirlwind of a wedding. And I'm sure a lot of people remember that or don't remember their weddings because it was just a blur. It was just a lot of things, and I just remember being so focused on the next point, and then just making sure is it over? Are we sure? Okay, and then just kind of trying to capture the picture, and yeah, it's etched in my mind forever. It's pretty special.
And just finally, 10 years on, looking back at that team, that group of guys, what's kind of the legacy that they left, or what kind of comes to mind?
Yeah, well, I think next year we'll talk about that a little bit more because that same team etched their spot in history. But I think it was that the turnover from Ron to me was such a big thing. Like Ron had built this really great program, and we moved into youth sports, and we go bronze, silver, gold, Canada West gold, bronze the next year. Like this great run, and then he mic drops and walks out and leaves his punk 27-year-old with the keys to a Porsche, and I barely have a license, and that's kind of what it felt like. And I really struggled for 2 years trying to be the coach. And then the third year, the team got to the finals, and at that point, it was all the guys I had recruited, and my version of our culture had started to take effect. And then I screwed up the 2010 final, basically, for the team. And it was just neat, just watching the transition between the third year version of that group to the fourth year version. So my fourth year and Rudy's fourth year, Ben's fourth year, like Mark's fourth year. We were all kind of growing together, and watching that group go from being a talented, fired up group to this tough, together, focused juggernaut of a volleyball team. And the discipline they played with, and the intent and the togetherness is just like that embodies so much of what we were trying to build. And to watch them play that way and get the result, I think that's the dream as a coach, is they played the way we'd asked them to, the way we were trying to, and then they got the results to reinforce the lessons. And that's launched basically the last decade of this program. For me, that was reinforcing to these principles work in this context. These types of people play well at Trinity Western. These values make us who we are, and the fact that we could win by believing in those things and playing that way, I think that's kind of given me some confidence, and it's also something the team today leans on. So on our staff is Ben Ball, and Rudy works from afar. Nick Del Bianco is our wellness coach, and a lot of guys from that era. Dan JVD was with us in the fall. So a lot of guys from that era are now teaching the current generation how it is. And yeah, I think, they would talk about standing the shoulders of giants, and man, I think that team was the shoulders that the current team stands on.
All right. Well, it's been fun reminiscing. 10 years on, what a weekend that certainly was for just to be even in the building. So thanks very much for joining us, Ben.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for doing this.